Hello everybody, good morning, or at least it's good morning for me right now. I'd like to do a little video for you on the first two-party political system. The formation of our two-party system in the United States really does begin under President George Washington, even though he was very much opposed to having political parties in our political discussion. I will do my best to avoid any sarcastic references to the current political climate. I also will do my best to not play any Hamilton songs for fear of, I'm not even sure if you're allowed to put that on YouTube. But anyway, you are going to be writing a DBQ about this topic, so this video will help you tremendously. If you can, take a few notes during the video. If not, then just sit back, listen, and enjoy. So, our first president, obviously we all know it's John Hanson, but the first president in the history books is George Washington, and he put together quite a team. This is his first cabinet. Secretary of War, Henry Knox. Secretary of State, Thomas Jefferson. Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton. And the Attorney General, Edmund Randolph, who, I don't know, does he bear a little bit of a resemblance to Derek Jeter, or am I just looking into it too much? Anyway, the two men you're going to want to be the most familiar with here are Jefferson and Hamilton, as they will be largely responsible for our first two political parties. I put John Jay to the side here, although I did not write his name in, that's a mistake, as the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He is not officially a member of the cabinet, although he was Washington's first choice for Secretary of State, but he turned down the position. Out of all these people, it is Alexander Hamilton who, sorry about that, who created a financial plan for the country moving forward. First, he did a report on all manufacturers. He really wanted to take the landscape of the economic landscape of the country at the time. And after he did all of his work, he came up with this plan. First, we cannot have 13 different forms of currency. We need one monetary system for the United States. Then he believed we had to consolidate all debts. That means that any states that had debts would be combined into one national debt. Part of our debt is when we sell out bonds to people. So he was willing to give people full value for those bonds. That was a big critique of his plan. Those who believed that his plan favored the wealthy, because wealthy people didn't have to sell their bonds during the earlier Articles of Confederation era. He wants to then help protect American industry by placing a protective tariff on foreign goods. And he would use the money raised from that tariff to pay off this new national debt that he's created. In addition, he also wanted to put a tax on whiskey to help pay off this debt. And then possibly the most controversial part of his plan was the creation of a national bank. Oh, and yes, I did have to put a little bit of Hamilton image, a few Hamilton images in there for you. All right, so now these are the two big players in the cabinet at the time, Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. Jefferson, from Virginia, he believed that the financial plan was favoring the wealthy, whereas Hamilton thought we could not have a successful country without the not only the creation of his financial plan, but really unity between all of the 13 states. If we created one national debt, each state would have a stake in the game. Now, the controversy of the National Bank, Jefferson believed that the Constitution did not state that the government could create a national bank. So he was interpreting the Constitution very strictly. Whereas Hamilton used Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18 in the Constitution, which stated that the Congress could do whatever it deemed necessary and proper. And this is sometimes referred to as the elastic clause. So he was interpreting the Constitution loosely. That will be a major difference between the two political parties early on. Although Jefferson will then change his views when he becomes president. And as far as foreign affairs, Jefferson really believed that we should be helping out the French, pay them back for what they did for us during the Revolution, whereas Hamilton was much more concerned, along with Washington, in getting involved in foreign affairs at this time. And then these pictures, this is then and now, or before and after, of Washington, D.C. That is how Hamilton was able to get his plan through. The southern states, like Virginia, that did not have debt, were very reluctant to support Hamilton's plan. So, since the First Nations capital was in New York, far from the South, Hamilton agreed to move the location of the capital from New York to the Potomac River, which would eventually become Washington, D.C. They temporarily built the capital in Philadelphia while they were finishing up the plans for D.C. Now, one incident that sparked tremendous controversy during Washington's administration was this whiskey rebellion. Farmers in Pennsylvania, what they were doing with their excess grain, excess corn, is they were distilling it into liquor. It would be easier to transport, and they could still sell it. Now, because of the excise tax on whiskey, they would have to, there would be a charge or a tax on that item. So they refused to pay the tax and started to rebel. Unlike when the Articles of Confederation was the form of government and the government looked very weak during Shays' Rebellion, this time Washington rounds up 15,000 militiamen, largely recruited from the states, and puts them under the command of Alexander Hamilton and crushes the rebellion. So the Whiskey Rebellion demonstrates that the government is much stronger now. It shows that the constitutional government is far superior than it was under the Articles of Confederation. But it still is not getting the support from Thomas Jefferson, and he was concerned, critical of the plan, and this made him very, very popular in the western frontier lands of the United States. Farmers really latched on to Thomas Jefferson. Now, other events that took place under Washington's presidency included the French Revolution, the Citizen-Genet affair, and a couple of treaties that were signed. So I'm going to go through these for you quickly. First, as far as the French Revolution, Washington was very much committed to staying out of foreign affairs. He issued this proclamation of neutrality in 1793, whereby Washington stated that the U.S. was going to remain neutral. Pretty obvious there. This really upset Thomas Jefferson, and as a matter of fact, between that issue along with Hamilton's plan, Jefferson is going to resign as Secretary of State. He is going to leave Washington's cabinet. And that's, I think that's another very important point for you all to remember. Now, this guy right here, this picture, I should probably find my pen to point to it. This guy, all right, Edmond Genet, was a French individual who's referred to as Citizen Genet. He showed up in the United States looking to get our support, again, during this French Revolutionary era. And when he got here, the women were very much taken by him. He was very popular in South Carolina, and he was really trying to disrupt the neutrality of the United States. Washington was very committed to getting him out of the country, and as you can see here, this might be the only issue where Jefferson and Hamilton both agreed. They wanted him because he was really disrupting our foreign affairs. He was able to actually stay in the country because he married a Clinton, I don't think there was any relation, from New York. But the Citizen-Genet affair shows how fragile we were in foreign affairs at this time. And in addition to that, there's going to be a practice known as impressment. And this is when other countries were kidnapping our sailors. They were taking control of our ships. Again, we're a very young, vulnerable nation at the time, and many countries were doing this to us. The issue of impressment is going to play a key role in the early foreign affairs of the United States. So we sent, remember that guy John Jay, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, first one. By the way, I hope you all know today the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is John Roberts, but I will not digress right now. We sent John Jay over to England to get them to stop this practice of impressment. He comes back with Jay's Treaty. Jay's Treaty says nothing about impressment, but it does offer to help get British soldiers out of the Northwest Territory, get them off of our soil, and to at least pay for damages that may have been caused by impressment, but they really do refuse to stop impressment altogether. When this treaty, everybody hold on to your seat for this one. When this treaty came back and Americans found out about it, they were so incensed that there was actually a call to impeach George Washington. Yes, that's right. The one, the only George Washington did face a lot of negative press and a lot of negative views because of this treaty. And he showed tremendous presidential courage, which is evidenced in a book by Michael Beschloss, one of my favorite historians, probably my top follow on Twitter, which I will share with you maybe in class. But it really shows the remarkable strength of Washington to overcome such tremendously negative view throughout the population. As a result of that treaty with England, Spain, worried that there might be a U.S.-English alliance forming, was willing to offer us a Pinckney Treaty. And that is named after Charles Pinckney. I take that back. It was named after Thomas Pinckney. And it allowed the United States to have the right to navigate along the Mississippi River. We really didn't have to give much up in exchange for this. They were just concerned about our a possible alliance with the English. So these are the foreign affairs that were very critical under George Washington. And waiting for the slide to turn, and it's not going. Okay, so now this slide is really the critical one for you, DBQ. This is your first two-party system. Now remember, when the Constitution was being negotiated, there was two groups, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. The Federalists supported the Constitution. Anti-Federalists were concerned that there was not a Bill of Rights. That's not really political parties as much as it was just different groups forming about the ratification. This is really our first two-party system. And I think it's important to note that George Washington did not want political parties in our nation. The Federalists were led by John Adams and Alexander Hamilton, where the Democratic Republicans were led by Jefferson and Madison. Adams and Hamilton, they're getting the support from the Northeast. They are, Federalists, a pro-business. They're more wealthy in their following, and they get a lot of support from large landowners as well. The Federalists would be more pro-Britain. You really had to pick at this time between your allegiance for Britain or for France, and they did support this in loose interpretation of the Constitution. Remember, Federalists will be in favor of the National Bank. Now, on the other side, the Democratic Republicans get their support from the South and the West, far more of an agricultural base of farmers, and they, at least at the time, are going to support a strict interpretation of the Constitution, largely against the bank. I don't think you should try to fit these names into parties today. I think that becomes a little bit tricky. Instead, just watch the evolution of our two-party system, because it is going to go through tremendous changes, and I think we're going to see some changes after the 2016 election as well. But this is a very important slide for you to understand for the DBQ. So, Washington is going to leave office in 1790. Well, Adams will be elected in 1796. Washington will give his farewell address in 1797. That is when he warned us against permanent alliances and against the formation of political parties. And as you all know, we didn't listen to him on either front. But the Adams administration, we have some major conflicts as well. Remember that policy of impressment, or the practice of impressment that I talked about, the taking of our ships, kidnapping of our sailors. Well, the French are now doing this to us, and John Adams sends over U.S. representatives to try to negotiate. He sends, this time he sends Charles Pinckney, and he sends Elbridge Gerry, remember that gerrymandering guy, and he sends John Marshall, a man you were going to learn a lot about in the next couple of days. When they make their way to France, they're not even able to negotiate. 3 French officials told our representatives that in order to meet their foreign minister, the Marquis de Talleyrand, just to meet him, they would have to provide the French with money. They were looking for a bribe. Again, not to negotiate, just to meet Talleyrand. So our men, Marshall, Pinckney and Jerry returned without any deal made, and the quote, millions for defense but not 1 cent for tribute became a key aspect of our national, patriotism at the time. And you can see in this, maybe you can see in this cartoon on the left here, that we call these agents Agent X, Agent Y, and Agent C. We won't even acknowledge them by name. And this XYZ affair led to tremendous anti-French sentiment in the country. And if you remember, the Democratic Republicans were the ones who were pro-France. So this is going to hurt them politically. I hope you see how this all fits together. In response to this issue, this incident, the XYZ affair, the Congress is going to pass the Alien and Sedition Acts. And these acts were, I didn't put specifically what they did, but I can tell you that they increased the number of years for somebody to become a citizen from 5 years to 14 years. And they also made it against the law to criticize the government. These Alien and Sedition Acts, which can be, if you wanted to, possibly compared to the Patriot Act of today, but these were really laws that were more focused on weakening the Democratic-Republican Party. And again, it shows you how our political parties at the time were playing a key role in the development of the nation. In response to these Alien and Sedition Acts, the leading Democratic Republicans, Jefferson and Madison, anonymously wrote the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. And these proposals argue that states should have the right to nullify laws that they didn't agree with. And this is so important. First of all, it's going to become a key aspect of the Civil War, but it really shows how the tensions are mounting between the two political parties at the time. And remember, Jefferson was Adams' vice president. At that time, whoever came in second place became the vice president. Now, Adams and Jefferson are going to have the rematch in 1800. I think I played the Hamilton song for you, and this is going to pit John Adams and Charles Pinckney versus Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. And this is the election where the electors were each given. By the way, I got to find out this this slide here. I think it's called Storybook, but I think you can create figures, and it looks like it would be a fun thing for us to do, or maybe just fun for me. But anyway, the results of this: John Adams is going to get 65 electoral votes, Pinckney 74, Jefferson 73, and Aaron Burr should have received 72. Because at this time, the electors had 2 votes. They would give one to the top person on the ticket and one to the bottom person on the ticket. But they really miscommunicated, and this is when Aaron Burr was tied with Jefferson. Rather than doing the right thing and just acknowledging that Jefferson should be president, he fought to get this position. And if you don't get a majority of the Electoral College votes, or if there's a tie, then the House of Representatives selects the president. I'm struggling here with the pen. I don't know why. Sorry about that. And the House of Representatives voted 35 times. And on the 36th ballot, Hamilton, yes, that's right, Alexander Hamilton, was able to convince one person to change his vote. And that was James Bayard from Delaware. And I think that led to Maryland and Georgia also changing. Please remember that if the House of Representatives does vote for the president, that it is a state-by-state vote. It is not one person, one vote. And I can finally get the pen to write. And again, this is the House of Representatives picking the president. And on the 36th ballot, they finally were able to get Thomas Jefferson elected. That is when the light bulb goes on over your head and you say, but wait, Mr. Simone, I thought you told me that Hamilton and Jefferson did not agree with each other. And you are correct. But if you remember the song, Hamilton at least believed that Jefferson had some views. Burr has none. Jefferson has beliefs. Burr has none. And he really had no respect for Burr. And that, along with many other reasons, will be why Hamilton will be the victim of a duel with Aaron Burr. But that's a topic for another day. So I tried to keep it at 15, but it went to 20 minutes. I hope you don't mind. And I hope this helps you very, very much as we embark on our first DBQ of the school year. Enjoy, take care. I have 10 seconds left. Amazing victory for the Houston Texans last night. Brock Osweiler really earned his $17.2 or $18.2 million. And on that note, have a great day.